Hey guys, today we're going to make the bike road ready. What does that mean? It means we're going to finish all the nickel and dime stuff on the bike. So this will be the last build episode for the bike. We're going to put on the fuel tank. We're going to put on the fuel line. We're going to straighten out a little bit of the wiring and it's going to be awesome. See you there. Okay, so when I was thinking about recording this episode earlier in the week, I remembered that inside of the voltage rectifier side of this, we have a Zener diode. That's a 3 diodes put in a circle, and that makes the AC hot and neutral into DC positive and negative. And then I remembered that I just left the second phase input wire unattached and just kind of tied it up in here. Technically, in order for that to work, we should have a negative and positive, so it'll just pass right through the diode. So I'm going to remove this pink wire here and then hook that up to ground. Hopefully that'll warm up the adhesive in the tape so I can pull this out. Yeah, there we go. So since we have DC in and DC out on the voltage regulator, there's really no reason to run a separate ground all the way from the generator. So we can just tie it into the ground right here by the battery. And that will eventually get over to the engine through the motor mounts. And I'm just going to use a short little wire here so I can patch it into the existing grounds. Alright, and then the other thing I realize is that I don't have a fuse on the leader wire going from the positive side of the battery through the switch and into the coil on this relay. So if this were to short out by, let's say, the handlebars or something, it could possibly fry the internals of the switch or the internals of the relay. So I'm going to splice this wire right here and then put in an inline fuse holder there, and we just have a little 10 amp fuse in there, and that will help protect the electrical system. And then the only other unfused line would be this blue one going to the relay, but as you can see, it doesn't make contact anywhere near the frame, so there's no need to really fuse that. And they're all fused over here when they go to the accessory, so that's all fine. So now I'm just going to solder up the connections to make sure they stay in place. Now I'm just going to tape up all these connections and make sure it looks good and that all the wires are out of the way of the wheel. Okay, so next on the to-do list here we have the fuel tank. We're going to go ahead and install the petcock first. Okay, that should be tight enough. Then we're just going to strap this to the frame. Okay, so before you go too crazy on tightening this up, you want to make sure that you have enough fuel line to reach your carburetor, which in this case is way out here. So we're going to go get that fuel line. So I'm just going to half this and then put in our little fuel filter that came with the kit. Helpful hint, don't use the cheap crappy line that comes with the kit. It just gets rock hard and then shrinks. Use this blue stuff. You can get it at Bikeberry, I think. Also on eBay. It works a lot better and it also is ethanol safe, so if you ever do decide to run alcohol for your fuel, which really livens up two-strokes, you're all set to go for that. And the cool part about this line is you don't need any hose clamps. It just pushes on like that. So there we go. So you want to make sure you run this under the frame so it's gravity fed because we don't have a fuel pump. It looks like we do have enough line to move the tank all the way up front, which does not happen in a lot of cases. We also want to make sure we don't pinch any brake or gear cables or wires. Okay, got that part going. And then we're just going to do the exact same thing for the back. Okay, so now I finished putting on the fuel tank, which was way more work than usual, thanks to all the extra wires. But hey, that's what you get when things are customized. If you want awesome, you have to pay for it, and it's usually in the form of suffering. Okay, so now I'm just going to zip tie the fuel line up here, just to keep it in place and make sure that it doesn't vibrate on the engine and make any noise or anything. Okay, and then we can just cut our hose to fit here. We're going to leave a little bit of slack for engine vibrations and in case the line does shrink a little bit. Like I said, this line doesn't shrink like the regular stuff does. If you're using the regular stuff, you would leave this much extra because that's literally how much the stuff that comes with the kit shrinks. There, now we have our awesome fuel line with our fuel filter, and we got a magnet in there to make sure we don't get any metal shavings in. And we have a tank. So we're good to go there. I'm just gonna get rid of this fuel drain hose because that's gonna be in the way. I don't really care if I spill on the ground when draining the float bowl. So we got that done. Up next, I'd say we should probably turn that carburetor. Make sure that the float is as level as possible. So I'll do that. Oh, look at all that extra slack we get now. Awesome. Okay, pedals aren't going to get in the way. Clutch arm's good. Float is relatively level, so I'll just tighten that back up in place there. I should check, make sure our throttle still works. Yep, that's all good. So, next on the list, tightening up the brakes. Okay, so you can see when I operate the brake lever here, I'll put my hand on the bottom, so you can see it's going almost all the way and actually touching the handlebar. So that means that our brakes are out of adjustment, and we're probably not going to be able to stop as good. I mean, it works okay for testing just this, but I'm pretty sure once we get up to speed, we're going to want more brakes. So there's a few adjustments that you can make. You can turn out these and then just relock the collars once you get to the right point. But I'm still getting a lot of movement here, so I think I have a cable down here that's going to need to be tightened. Alright, I repositioned the bike here so you can see what I'm talking about. This nut right here is going to need to be loosened, and then we're going to put the brakes together as far as we can. Pull that out. We basically want this to be as tight as possible without rubbing. Now, the reason why I'm pulling it as tight as I can onto the rim is because when you let go, it's going to do that. It's going to spread apart. Then, just going to lift this up. Whoa! That's a lot heavier than it used to be. Alright, so you can see we do have a little bit of rubbing. Whew! That is heavy. Okay, so we are going to need to loosen this just a little bit. And check the gap here. Looks like about 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. Okay, that's pretty good. So I'm going to lock that in place there on the top. Okay, and then we're just going to repeat the same process for the rear wheel, and then keep in mind that you want to set that with a little less braking power than the front. You can do that up here or on the back. The reason why you want more braking power up front is so that your rear wheel doesn't lock up and then slide like that. Okay, so I got both brakes set good. They work really good. You can see it's really loading up the front fork there when I hit the brakes. So now we're just going to check freedom of movement here back and forth with the clutch. And you can hear there's some clunking going on. That's caused usually by two things. And I can hear it. It's actually rubbing on this cover. That's where the sound's coming from. The other thing that causes clunking sometimes is if you have your wheel either tilted to the left or to the right, you'll have a sprocket misalignment. In that case, what you'll want to do is loosen the two nuts on the back wheel and then realign your wheel and tighten it back up. But in this case, you can really hear that all that clunking is going on under this cover. So I think that notch that I had cut earlier, it's a little out of place or needs to be made bigger. So I'm going to take this cover off to find out. Okay, what do we have here? So it looks like the cover's actually just fine. I'm going to say it's probably in this case just due to some really high chain tension. You can see I don't have a lot of play, and that's just because of the way the links lined up. But it will loosen over time while you ride it, very quickly actually. So what I'm going to do is just oil up the chain really good and put this cover back on, and that should be good enough. Okay, so for oiling the chain, you want to use an actual chain lube. You can also use gear oil or motor oil, but do not use WD-40. That is a distillate, and that will dry out your chain literally in like 1 day. So what you want to do is just get this all oiled up really good. And then you can get some on your tire and wipe out the first time when you ride it too. That's a good idea. But basically, just get it all oiled up all the way across. And then you want to rotate the bike a little bit, or rotate the chain by moving the bike. So to do that, we're just going to put on the clutch cover. Okay, so now we're just going to rotate the bike back and forth a little bit, make sure the oil gets worked in. And I'm also going to spray that part under the sprocket. I know it's probably out of frame for you now, but there we go. And then it should make less noise once you start riding it. Okay, so this is probably the most important part of getting your bike road ready. You want to make sure after you do all this work that you don't forget to air up the tires, because you're probably going to have it sitting in your shop for a long time and then lose pressure from when you first assemble the bike and completely forget about it. So it's always a good idea to check that before you go out. And as you can see, that's exactly what's happened since I last aired up these tires in January. We're down from 50 to 20, so so we're definitely going to have to air these up. I'm going to go to the max pressure rating for this tire because we just have a lot of extra weight with the motor, and we're going to have fuel and all the stuff like the battery, so we're going to want extra pressure so we don't have any issues with popping a tube or having the tire come off the rim. Okay, there we go. We have our max pressure. Gonna put our dust cover back on, and that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna go ahead and do the same thing for the back of the bike. All right, thanks for watching today, guys. The bike is together, everything's done. It's looking sick as you know what. The only thing left to do is put in fuel and test drive it, and that will be the next video because it's currently 48 degrees outside and raining. So not the most ideal conditions for testing a air-cooled bike that's going to be cold-blooded and have a high compression head. So hopefully we'll have some better weather next week, and then we will actually go and try that thing out. Also, we have another show coming up. It's going to be probably a few weeks to a month out. Basically, we're going to be doing a lot of the things that we already do with the motorized bike, except it's going to be a regular thing, not just a mini series. So subscribe, hit that bell notification so you'll know when that next new show is out, and you can be one of the first to see the cool things. And maybe we're going to vote on the next project. We'll see. So I'll see you guys next time, and we will be riding. Wow, wow, wow. Wait. Cut. It's a thumb throttle. So how does that work? Just wow, wow, wow? Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Wow, wow, wow. That's the one that's going to be the final take. I guarantee it. Bye.